so that people can.
You may begin, Sudarshan.
Yeah. Very good evening and welcome to our sessions today, studying computer science in the United States. Before we start the sessions, I will quickly tell you a couple of things. Please keep your camera and microphone muted during the sessions. If you have any questions during the sessions, please put it in the chat box. There will be around 15 to 20 minutes at the end of our presentations, and we will take all your questions and answer them. To all possible questions actually. And my name is Sudarshan Saha. I am from the Education USA Kolkata Center, and today with me there are two of my colleagues, Megha Rai Chatterjee as well as Unnati Singhena, helping me in these sessions. Before we go to the actual topic, let me quickly tell about Education USA. Some of you may be already aware about the Education USA. Some of you have joined for the first time. So we are a global network under the Education USA network under the Department of State, Government of US. There are, in the sessions today, I will talk about Education USA, then I will introduce the four presenters representing the four diverse institutions. And then at the end, there will be question and answer and quickly wrap up in few minutes at the end. So about Education USA, we are a global network, around 430 plus countries, 430 plus centers in 175 countries. It's supported by the Department of State, Government of US, and we provide accurate, comprehensive, and current information about higher education in the US. More important is that we provide information, unbiased information about all accredited universities and colleges. In India, we have 8 centers located in 7 cities. We have centers in Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad, Kolkata, Mumbai and New Delhi, and myself Sudarshan from the Kolkata Center. And if you are joining from any other country, you can note down the educationusa.state.gov website, where you will get complete information about studying in the US as well as centers located in different countries. So we are very lucky and we're very pleased to have representatives from 4 diverse institutions. And our representatives are very well-known and well-informed about Indian audience also. We have today Tathagata Bhattacharya, who is a graduate teaching assistant pursuing his PhD in the Department of Computer Science, Auburn University. He has won multiple fellowships of NSF, I think that is National Science Foundation, for his outstanding research and scholarly activities. He has also been awarded among the international, the first time among the international students for outstanding work, outstanding graduate students of the year in 2021. Welcome to our sessions, Tathagata. It's good to see you as a panelist in the session.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. We have with us Professor Tyson Henry, Professor and Chair of the Computer Science Department at California State University Chico. Dr. Henry has 20 years experience teaching programming, operating systems, software engineering, web programming, and compiler design. He has been department chair for the 5 years. His primary research interest is computer science education. Thank you, Professor Tyson Henry, for joining today's session.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah,
I'm glad to be here.
And we have with us Professor Chaim Lefkovich, who has been University of Massachusetts Lowell Computer Science faculty member since 1989 and the chair since 2016. During his almost 6 years as chair in the computer science department, the computer science faculty doubled from 16 to 32 during his tenure. As did the undergraduate student body from 500 to 1,000. So the number of students become from 500 to 1,000. He has he was a recipient of 2 Fulbright Fulbright about to Brazil, one in 2004 and one in 2012. Thank you, Professor Likovic. He's the author of Color Theory and Modeling for Computer Graphics, Visualizations, and Multimedia Applications, written in 1997. He has co-authored and co-editor of writing scientific papers in English successfully. Your complete roadmap in 2014. Welcome, Professor Levkovich.
My pleasure. Pleasure being with all of you.
And finally, we have Professor Michael L. Scott, is the Arthur Gould Yates Professor of Engineering and Chair of the Department of Computer Science at the University of Rochester, New York. He's a fellow of the Association of Computing Machines, a US-based international learning society for computing. He's also a member of Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, as well as American Association for the Advancements of Science. He has published approximately 180 referred works, including the textbook on programming language pragmatics, used widely in India around the world. Welcome, Professor Michael Scott, to our sessions. So our first presenter would be from Auburn University, Mr. Tathagato Bhattacharya. Over to you, Tathagato. I am stopping my screen sharing. Please use your screen sharing.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Tathagato Bhattacharya. Currently, I'm working as an instructor of record at Auburn University. And I'm glad that I have been given this stage to talk about my experience, my journey in Auburn. So have you ever thought about some graduate school where you will not only get a very good quality education, but also you will be super happy while pursuing the education? So if you think like something like that, then your destination is Auburn. Why? Let us discuss. I'm sharing my screen with you. Okay, so let us start. So talking about the rankings. So Auburn University has largest computer science department in Alabama. And Auburn is one of the top 50 public universities in the US. Also, the CS department in the US is under top 100. So, I mean, you can understand the quality of education that Auburn provides. And Auburn is right now our R1 category university, which is like research 1 category university that provides you an amazing quality of research and education. So moving on, what is the best thing, what I like about Auburn is being happy. So Auburn has been ranked #1 nationally in the happiest students category in Princeton Review. So I have seen many of my friends who go to other universities and they keep on complaining that they're not happy with their PhD curriculum. They're not happy with the equation with the other students, their lab mates or the faculties or their advisors. But I haven't heard something like that in Auburn. Maybe there is something, but I haven't heard about it. And you can see the ranking as happiest students in Princeton Review. So I had this amazing experience in Auburn. Moving on about the online degree programs, Auburn ranks 18 in best online engineering programs and 21 best online IT program by US Weather and World Report. Apart from that, if I talk about the department structure, there are 25 tenured and tenure track faculty members. There are 7 teaching faculty members, which are the lecturers. Like I'm one of the lecturers right now. And we have 5 graduate degrees and certificates. We have 120 PhD students. So if you see, there are 120 PhD students and 70 master's students. And the most important part for any of the international student is assistantship awards. We have more than 100 assistantship awards, and they are quite fulfilling for staying in Auburn and continuing your education. Moving on, how to apply for Auburn. So you basically know all of the steps, but what I want to focus here about two main things. One is the transcripts. So if you want to apply in any of the US-based universities, you have to get transcripts. And before you apply, please get the transcripts from the universities, because this transcript, it takes a lot of time for the universities in India to provide you transcript, because that is basically not their format of showing the grades. So try to get the transcripts very well. And the second most important part is recommendation letters. So get some recommendation letters from person who know you well, who can understand what you have done, and who has significant knowledge about what you are doing, what research you're interested in, or maybe someone who has taught you in your class. So try to get recommendations from them. And you know the rest of the application procedure. I'm not going through that. Also try to have some publications that would bolster your application, and try to have some good research work, because if you write a research proposal, I think that adds some value to your application. The professors would also get impressed to see that, oh, you have a research proposal already, so that means you're already trying to do some research. So try to get some research proposal. These are some courses in master's degree for Auburn. There is CSSC thesis, non-thesis, there's cybersecurity, and data science. There are just 4 things. So for CSSC thesis and non-thesis, the core courses are same, which is advanced algorithm, advanced computer architecture, and advanced operating system. But the main difference between thesis and non-thesis is, in thesis, you have to perform some thesis, and you have to write the thesis, and you have to defend your thesis. Whereas in case of non-thesis, you don't have that burden, like you do not have to go for thesis. But since I'm a PhD student, I did my integrated master's PhD, and my master's was in thesis. Apart from that, cybersecurity is a very, very growing field right now, and Auburn provides you a very good quality cybersecurity major, and data science and engineering as well. So these two are very newly developed courses, and they have a lot of faculties, a lot of resources for these courses. So if you're interested, you can also apply for cybersecurity and data science and engineering. Apart from that, let's just talk about the PhD program. So here in the PhD program, you have to complete 66 hours of credit. And also you have these 3 courses here, which are the core courses: advanced algorithm, advanced computer architecture, and advanced operating system. And you have to give a qualifying exam within 1.5 years. But how you can bypass this exam? If you're adding masters to your PhD, then you are already taking these courses: advanced algorithm, advanced computer architecture, and advanced OS. So that would help you in just bypassing the qualifying exam. So if you are getting A in all these courses, then you don't have to sit for the qualifying exam, and you can directly sit for the proposal defense once you are done with the research. So this is a very good option that Auburn provides, because qualifying exams are very, very stressful. I'm sure all the professors would agree with me that qualifying exams are super stressful. So Auburn tries to make you less stressed out, and that's why this strategy they have taken. They have added the masters so that you don't have to go through this stressful experience of giving the qualifying exams. Then we have all these courses that are lined up here. There are so many new courses in the sphere of data science, big data, cybersecurity, software engineering, AI and machine learning, all the recent trends and strategies. With that, you have this new courses that are there in Auburn. Apart from that, let us talk about tuition fees. So for Alabama students, the tuition fee is really less. But for any student who are out of Alabama, the tuition fee is high. But Auburn provides several fellowships, several grants, several scholarships to pursue your degree. So you don't have to worry about this fee. So it's a very nominal fee. It will be very nominal fee if you get some fellowship or some scholarships. Okay, now talking about the funding. So we have basically 3 different types of funding. First is teaching assistantship, then we have research assistantship, and some student, like I got both teaching plus research assistantship when I was doing my PhD. So that is, you get basically like two funds. So one is for teaching assistantship, one is for research assistantship. So we have 70 positions, and you don't even need to apply for this teaching assistantships, because whenever you're doing the application, they will automatically consider you for the teaching assistantship. But for research assistantship, you have to contact the CSSE faculties, and they will take some interview, or they will give you some coding exercises, or maybe read some papers or some kind of assignments like that. And then you can get some research assistantship from them if you're successful. So this fundings not only covers your total tuition fee, but it also gives you a stipend that is more than sufficient to to have a house, to have food, to have your car and everything. So this is very sufficient for you, whatever the money Auburn gives you. And Auburn is a place where the living cost is very low. So you end up saving a lot of money here, and that will be eventually great for you, because you can buy a car or you can do anything with that money. And next, so this is our current statistics. So we have total 70 GTAs, which is a graduate teaching assistantship. I'm not talking about the research assistants, but this is just the GTAs. So we have 70 GTAs right now, and 79% are PhD students, whereas 14% are integrated master's PhD students, and 7% are MS students. So you can see that all these students have significant amount of funding. I did not include about undergraduate students, because undergraduate students also receive significant amount of funding, but I didn't have had much of the data, because I've been working with the graduate students for so long. So I didn't have much data, but I'm pretty sure I have talked with some undergraduate students, and they all have received funding from Auburn. Okay, now there are some scholarship service program if you want to perform your research in cybersecurity, and it has been given by NSF and Dr. Dean Hendricks, who is the associate department chair and associate professor. He's managing this fund. So if you want to get any information about that, you can definitely email sfs@auburn.edu, because they would provide you some very good amount of grant, both for undergrad as well as grad students. And here, apart from those fundings, there are several other funding resources that you can apply for. I'm just telling some of you, like Dean's Fellowship, you can get Presidential Fellowship, and most of the international graduate or undergraduate students, they get this kind of fellowship awards. So apart from your GTA or GRA, you are going to get this kind of awards like Presidential Fellowship, Dean's Fellowship, and that would provide you a very high amount of money within 3 or 5 years to conduct your research, to conduct your degree program, and that will be awesome for you. Also, you have, other than the GT and GRA jobs, you have several student positions. There are several on-campus jobs, like you can go to Starbucks, you can work in the Shelby Center, or there are so many other options, like a student advisor. You can work with the Senate, you can work with the mental health counseling team, you can work with LGBTQ assistantships and everything. So you have multiple student positions, and I think that will be sufficient for you to have a good life here in Auburn. And so here are the on-campus jobs that you can find, and there are so many things in campus. Apart from that, We have RFID Lab. So RFID Lab also provides a significant amount of scholarship for all the students. So they cover your tuition fellowship as well as they provide you the stipend. RFID is a very interesting technology. If you see RFID Lab in Auburn, you can get about the ideas. And before applying in Auburn, if you want to apply for joining RFID Lab, you can just directly send an email to Justin Patron or Senti Kumar CP. They are the main in charge of RFID Lab, and they can sponsor your whole education. So if you see that Auburn has actually multiple fellowships and multiple awards to support you throughout your education, they always make sure that you don't suffer, you don't face this economic issues when you're doing your PhD. This is a very, very important part that Auburn always takes care of. So these are some notable alumni of Auburn. Also, we have Tim Cook from Apple, who is a CEO of Apple, who was our alumni. So we get significant funds from Apple, and we also do several projects, internships in Apple, Facebook, and Google. And we have several tech challenges that happens. And, generally big techies like Microsoft, Google, Adobe, and Apple, they recruit significant students for internship, and at the end they recruit them as an employee. So you will get a lot of opportunities to pursue your career in Auburn. We have engineering and technology career fair, where you can find several jobs. So that is like more a campusing option. Every year, we have this engineering and technology career fair where several companies come to Auburn and they hire students based on their CV and their qualifications. So it's a great exposure for you if you want to pursue your career in Auburn. Then we have Miller Writing Center. These are some of our very significant resources which help you to write your CV, to polish your statement of purpose, which shapes your e-portfolio. So you get basically all the resources, all the helps from Auburn to shape your career. Not only about the funding or only the study, but also we have Miller Writing Center and so many other resources. We have mental health counseling, a free mental health counseling club in Auburn, which was set up by us. Like, I am a GSE senator, so I work for the Senate of Auburn, and we have set up this mental health counseling club where the students get mental health counseling, and also they get some career advices as well. So these are very few significant resources of Auburn. We have Big U Center that helps you in doing the technical work. So you can get all the technical helps from Big U Center. And even in the last few years, they have ended up in providing free MacBooks to every student. They have provided Windows and Windows machine and so many laptops to students, iPads, when the COVID pandemic broke out. So Big U Center is also a big support for you in terms of technological development. They help you in writing codes. They help you whenever you're stuck on some code or you're stuck on some project or some of the difficulties that you're getting. So yes, that's all. And you can get all this information by writing Auburn Computer Graduate Program, and you can get all the information here in Google. Apart from that, I have already talked to you about the three majors that we provide here.
Can you just quickly wrap up, please?
Yes, it's fine. So this is how you apply, and yeah, that's all about the whole course. Thank you.
Thank you, Tathagata, for the wonderful presentations. Now,
thank you.
okay, so Professor Tyshawn Henry, it's now your turn to.
All right, I think thank you for inviting us to be here. We're a different class of university than my other presenters today. We do not provide a PhD program. We're primarily focused on undergraduate education. but we do have a few master's programs across campus, one of them being Masters of Computer Science. Feel free to contact me if you have any follow-up questions. I put my email down here on this slide, but if you Google Tyson in Chico, it's pretty easy to find me, or you can find me on our webpage. All right, so we provide 3 degrees. We provide a master's in computer science, a bachelor's in computer science, and a bachelor's in computer information systems. And our information systems degree is a little bit unique in that it's sort of halfway between a computer science bachelor's and a business information systems degree. So it's a very tech heavy, it's like a very tech heavy business information degree. Our program is without a doubt focused on preparing students for careers in the American software industry. We're very hands-on oriented. So our students, both at the master's and the graduate level, spend a lot of time building software. We're very software focused. Almost all of our classes have significant programming components to them. We, as we heard from Alabama, we are also a very friendly and engaging department. We have a dozen faculty. They're all on first name basis. And our goal is really to make this a community where all of our students feel welcome and make it a good place to learn. Our master's program is developed for basically 2 areas: people who want to advance their career and also people who want to change careers. So we accept students with virtually any undergraduate degree. You have to take more prerequisite courses, but we've designed the program to make it a viable means for someone to come from a different area, take all the courses they need, and get a master's. So our strengths for our undergrad program is that we really focus on strong programming foundations. We teach our undergraduate and much of our graduate program in C and C++, which is a little different than the national trend. Our feeling is that if students understand how to program in C++, if they understand memory management well enough to tackle C++ programs, they can program in any language. And we want our students to graduate with that strong understanding of programming. As I said before, project-based hands-on learning. We want to make sure our students are ready to hit the ground running when they graduate. I've heard many managers tell me, they hire a student from Chico, they hire a student from Berkeley, and Berkeley's got a world-class reputation, but when these students are working side by side, it's often the Chico State students who outperform because we focus so much on actually solving problems. We're a small, friendly department. Faculty have regular office hours. Almost all our classes are taught by faculty, and you have a chance to get to know your faculty and first name and get help from them. Okay, next slide. So the master's program in some ways is very much like the bachelor's program. I cheated a little bit with this same slide. However, we have no culminating exam and no culminating project. So you don't have to do a thesis if you don't want to. You don't have to do a project if you don't want to. We actually have a culminating class where you work on a project just within the confines of one class. We moved to this plan a while ago because it really increased our sort of finishing rate, that our students were more likely to finish than when we had a master's project. Next slide. So we are very job focused. We want our students to be able to go out and succeed in American industry. And we're an old department. We've been around 55 years now, and we have graduates in every sector of the software industry. We regularly have students go to Amazon and Google. We just had a master's student who got a job at Microsoft for just fantastic salaries. But I put all these on here because when you're looking at schools, you want to know where the graduates are getting jobs. Our graduates are successful in industry because we've taught them the strong programming foundation. And a lot of what companies want is strong programmers. So while I can't tell you every one of our master's students is working for one of these companies, several of them are, and I haven't heard of any in our last cohort of master's students who haven't gotten a job. And just because you get a master's is not a guarantee that you get a job, because companies test you hard in the interview process. So I can't tell you come to Chico and you will definitely get a job at one of these companies, but come to Chico and do well, and chances are strong that you'll get a good job at a major US company. Next slide. So Chico is one of 23 campuses in the California state system. It's the largest university system in the country, with nearly 500,000 students overall. And we're in a kind of a unique one of the campuses. Most of the campuses are in the big cities. We're in a small city about a 3-hour drive north of San Francisco. It's a residential town. It's a residential campus in a sense. And we provide this kind of liberal arts college feel to it. Even though we're in the most populous state and so much of the rest of the state is just giant city, we're in a nice, quiet little town in the far north. And that's very pleasant. Our students tend to like it here. We don't have a lot of financial aid. I'll be straight with you on that. But we also have very low tuition. For a bachelor's, it's about $20,000 a year for all your tuition and fees. And that includes the out-of-state fees for international students. A master's student is about $16,000 a year. Now, living expenses are on top of this, but these are the university expenses. Sometimes you might get $10,000 support from another university, but your bottom line could be higher than the California state system. And by the way, these are fees set across the California state system. So it's not just Chico State. All of our campuses have these fee structures. Next slide. So I want to spend a little time with general advice that's for students coming from India. Oops, I need to go back one. Okay, thank you. General advice for students coming from India. I've worked here for 20 years and I've seen a lot of students coming from India, and some things that I really want you to think about. The first one is that US education focuses a lot on solving problems. And what I've heard from students coming from India, much of the Indian education system is about memorizing things. And it may seem like that's not a huge shift, but it is a huge shift. The transition from being required to memorize a bunch of stuff to being required to solve problems is a tough one. And I want you to be aware of that, because a lot of students come here thinking, you know, I've been memorizing stuff my whole life. I'm really good at school. I'm just going to march into whatever program you come to and keep doing what you're doing. You can't. You're going to have to shift your focus on how school works and be prepared for it. I don't want to scare you away, but I believe that if you're prepared for this shift and realizing that it's not just memorizing stuff, it's figuring out how to solve problems, then it'll be an easier transition from India to US. Ultimately, companies want to hire people who can solve problems. And that's why the US education system is based around solving problems. Another main thing I see is that in some countries, students do a lot of collaboration. I asked a group of students from India not too long ago, how is it that you can take 10 courses in a semester? Because here you might take 3 courses in a semester. And we're in this group of students, and the student said, well, he does one, he does one, he does one, he does one, he does one. And you all collaborate, and together you can get all your courses done. That's not allowed here. And in fact, in most US universities, if you do a whole lot of collaborating, you get expelled. The US education system requires you to do your own work. That's our goal, is we want you to do your own work. And the reason is we're trying to prepare you for industry where you can solve problems and do work. So I've seen a lot of, really sad cases of students who do a lot of collaborating. They're exposed for collaborating, and you might be surprised how good we are at finding people who over collaborate, and they get thrown out of the university. All that money you've spent can be lost. So this is something you need to be very clear about wherever you go, what you're allowed to do with somebody and what you have to do on your own. My third main advice is to pay close attention to the actual cost. For example, state minimum wage in the United States ranges from $7.25 an hour I'll pick on Alabama here, in Alabama, and $15 an hour in California. So if you support yourself with an on-campus job, and most US campuses right now are really in need of student employees, and these jobs can range from food service to IT support. In one state, you might get $7.50 an hour, and in another state, you might get $15 an hour. So you have to be really aware of minimum wage. You also obviously have to be aware of housing and food costs. California has the highest minimum wage, but we also have considerably higher housing costs. So these are costs you really need to look into carefully. A big divide in universities and computer science is the focus on theory, research, and kind of software development. I'm not saying that any department is all theory or any department is all software development. There's certainly a mix, and there's certainly a mix between research, where faculty are researching new and innovative ways of doing things, and very practical applications of learning how to build software. And so you need to understand what you're after. We don't offer, at Chico State, we don't offer a PhD program. We are not particularly research oriented. Our faculty do some research, but nothing like you'll see at a Research One PhD granting institution. We also focus an awful lot on development, on more hands-on than on theory. So there is this range between theory, which, if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's kind of like the mathematics side of computer science, where in some institutions you might take a lot of classes where you never write programs. In other institutions, you might have less of that theory side and spend a lot of time writing programs. And what you need to decide is what environment meets your needs. Obviously, if your goal is to get a PhD, then you need to be at a research institution. But if your goal is to get a bachelor's and go out and get a job in industry, then research probably isn't the direction you want to go in, but it could be. You might want to do a research-oriented bachelor's, so you could move into a graduate program. It's something I want you to be aware of, these dichotomies between research and education, and the dichotomy between theory and application. School reputation certainly helps you find a job. And in fact, they won't actually help you get a job, they'll help you get an interview. Most jobs in the US require some pretty stringent tests, so to speak. The interview is a test. And it's important that you're aware of that you're not walking into this thinking, I'm gonna get a degree and then all these companies are just gonna offer me jobs. What the companies will do is they'll offer you interviews where you have to do some pretty hard tests. And so it's important to pick a university that prepares you for this job interview. You don't want to only go towards the job interview, obviously. You want to be prepared to succeed once you get the job. But you do want to find out where students are getting jobs. If there's a university where students never get jobs at good companies, you want to ask the question, why not? And so that's something I think you should pay attention to. LeetCode is a website that allows you to practice the kinds of problems that you're going to be asked during a job interview. And I've had students say that this got them the job, that being able to practice these little problems right before the interview is very helpful. And one more thing that I wanted to put on here is that your statement of purpose is more important than your letters of recommendation. I've found that Indian professors tend to write exceptionally great letters of recommendation for every one of their students. And so I don't pay a lot of attention to the letters of recommendation because every one of you walk on water. Every one of you are phenomenal students, the best students the professor has ever seen. And so it's important to have letters of recommendation, but it's also important to have a really good statement of purpose. And what I want to encourage you to do in your statement of purpose is to write about you. I see a lot of students write a statement of purpose about famous people in software engineering said this, or this CEO said that, and computer science is a wonderful, wonderful thing, it's changing humanity. That doesn't help me. What I want to know when I read your statement of purpose is about you. And if you struggled in school, if your test scores are low, you need to explain why in your statement of purpose. Hopefully in your statement of purpose, you can get across the real personal reason why you want to be in this field, why you want to pursue a degree. But don't make it sound like the only thing I ever want to do in the rest of my life is to get a master's in computer science, because I don't believe that. But try to be personal in this statement. Make sure it's read by other people. Make sure it's concise. I think that the main difference between the writing I see out of Indian students and sort of traditional American writing is writing out of India in English tends to be very verbose. There are a lot of words and phrases and sentences even that don't add to the story. So when you're working on your statement of purpose, make it personal and make it concise. If you can say something in one sentence, then don't write 9 sentences. You're not going to get extra credit for writing more. All right, well, thank you for listening. I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Professor Taisha Henry, for the important advice to Indian applicants. It's a very, very important advice that you have provided. Now over to University of Massachusetts Lowell. Welcome, Professor Chaim Levkovich.
I better unmute myself. Good evening to you, morning here. Before I continue, I want to thank Professor Henry. I grew up in Israel and I'm Jewish, and in Judaism we have a say that a person who gets their work done for them by someone else is blessed. And Professor Henry did quite a bit of work for me with all the advice that he gave to you. Let me introduce myself very briefly. This month I'm celebrating 50 years as a computing professional. I've been 33 years at I'm sorry, my computer is acting independently and muted me. So I'll just repeat, 50 years as a computing professional, 33 years on the faculty and 6 years as chair. This is my last year's chair. They're going to have elections for a new chair sometime within the next few weeks. My personal research interests are what I call human information interaction, which includes information visualization, color, mobile, and web. If you can just proceed. By the way, I was very happy to hear that we are not the only one who still stick to C and C++ for our first 4 courses in computer science. Computing 1, Computing 2, Computing 3, and Computing 4 are all done in C and then C++. And as I said before, Professor Henry explained exactly why more people should do that, so I don't have to repeat it in too many details. If you could please proceed to the next slide. Okay, so let me introduce the University of Massachusetts. Lowell is part of the University of Massachusetts State system. As a matter of fact, the Massachusetts State system has several tiers. The first tier is UMass, which has 5 campuses, including one that it's exclusively medical and health professions. We are the second largest campus. You probably have heard of UMass Amherst, which has about 40,000 students. We have about 18,000, probably anticipating close to 20 in a few years' time. We are one of the strong arguments to come to UMass Lowell is that we are really a suburb of Boston, and the whole area is one of the strongest high-tech and higher learning centers in the United States. We have, over the last 10 years or so, built and or renovated about 14 buildings. There's been a lot of growth, while a lot of other institutions have been seeing some struggling. We have had waiting lists, and not to mention even computer science, as our host mentioned a little earlier. Over the last 5 or 6 years, we've doubled our undergraduate student body in computer science. We've become the largest department on campus. Our graduate student population has, perhaps we should move to the next slide. Maybe that data is there. Just to give you a little bit of history, the department was established in 1979. The university actually starts the counting somewhere in the late 19th century. There have been multiple transitions that eventually culminated in us becoming one of the UMass campuses back in the early 90s. The Department of Computer Science was established in 1979, and as I've mentioned, and our host has mentioned, we managed to grow the faculty over the last 6 years from 16 to 32. Previously, it kind of stayed mostly flat. When I came in '89, we were 14 faculty members. We bumped up a little bit, down a little bit, up a little bit, but the last 6 years were very vigorous growth. Our research dollars have also grown significantly. I don't have numbers with me. We have roughly 150 master students, a lot of which actually come and have over the years come from India. And we have currently about 60 or 70 PhD students. We also offer within the department separate programs for Bachelors of Science in Information Technology and Masters of Science in Information Technology. These are both completely online and have been very strong and have gotten a lot of awards within the awarding system. I personally do not take those awards too seriously, but apparently they do play some role in attracting new students. We don't have a problem attracting students. As a matter of fact, we're reaching a point that if we don't get some more physical space, we will not be able to accept more students for a while, because we've literally been bumping towards the wall and the ceiling physically. We're also in the process of launching a Bachelor of Science in Data Science that's currently in the process of approval. This is a state university, so you have to get an approval at the department, at the college, at the faculty senate level, and then it has to go to the state's Board of Higher Education before any program gets approved. So that's where things are now progressing. And as soon as the Bachelor of Science in Data Science is approved and is launched, we're going to move forward for Masters and PhD in Data Science in parallel to the computer science and the information technology programs that we have within the department. And conceivably, at some point or another, we'll probably elevate the status of the department into a school or a college, as some institutions have been doing over the years. I want to comment briefly on Professor Henry's distinction between hands-on and research. So it turns out that we have been able to stay on both sides of that spectrum. As I point here on this slide, we have had some significant research. We have faculty members who have $10 million in research grants, and those numbers keep on growing. And at the same time, we've been able to maintain an approach that's very similar to what Professor Henry described at Chico. Our students are very, very, very well known and well regarded within, I would say, 75 to 100 miles radius at least. I've had people not unlike what you described, Professor Henry, comparing Chico and Berkeley. I'm not going to name names of universities, just I don't want to. But I've had hiring managers and CEOs and CTOs telling me, I've gone to University X, very, 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 very well-known university, and I hired the graduates, and I'm not going back there again. They were no good. And they keep on kind of counting various very, very famous universities and said, but I keep on coming to your career first every time you have one. And even when you don't have a career fair, I try to hire your graduates because they land on their feet first day and they know what to do, and they're very strong software developers, productive on day one. And in the 33 years, and I don't know how many thousands of students have gone through my hands, not just my hands, but through our hands while I've been on the faculty, I don't think I ever met, even in the lower times, I don't know, some of you may not know this, but shortly after 9/11, there was a lull in a lot of things, actually including the input of international students. Also, after the dot-com boom turned into a boom in 2000, for a few years, people thought that computer science was dead, that the internet was dead. So we saw a little bit of drop in enrollments, but that was only very, very temporary. But even during those low moments in our field, our students were getting hired with, I would say, very, 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 very few exceptions. So thousands of students, and today they get, not only do they get hired when they graduate, but nowadays I've noticed how many people at companies, higher ups, lower ups, depending on the size of the company, and we got them all sizes, they try to come up with creative ways to cut the line to hire our students. And they offer, oh, I'm going to teach them, I'm going to give them this, I'm going to give them that. And they're trying to lure students while they're still in school to go work for them. And I've told many of those people, that's terrific because our students gain a lot by going to work at a real place, and they gain money and they gain experience and they learn what they like and what they not like. But you better be careful not to drag them into staying at work, not finishing school, because if it happened once, I will not allow you to come back to this campus. Because there is that risk nowadays. The pay is amazing. The options for work, the opportunities are just staggering, and some people get a little too excited about it that they forget to come back and finish their degree, and that is not a good move. Unfortunately, for the audience that we're talking to today, who are going to be international students, that usually is not going to be an option, but I'm just mentioning it as a by the way. I wanted to touch a little bit upon research that takes place at UMass Lowell at the computer science department. We have very strong robotics faculty members and robotics programs. Some of our faculty members within the department, I think we have now 3 or 4 who are nominally CS faculty, but there is also a group of people in mechanical engineering and in electrical and computer engineering and possibly somewhere else that I forget at this moment. And they all collaborate quite nicely. on robotics research. We have a substantial and growing cybersecurity program. We have cybersecurity options within our bachelor's and within our master's degree. So if you want to get a computer science degree, but you want to get the stamp of cybersecurity, as again was mentioned earlier, it's very, very, very hot these days and getting hotter and hotter by the moment. So it's going to be dangerous to touch it because you're going to get yourself burned. So we have research in various aspects of AI and natural language processing, databases, data mining, text mining and search, digital health. We have people in systems and operating systems, machine learning, visual computing, user interface and user experience, and in programming languages. If we can flip to the next slide, I want to mention a little bit about our facilities. So we have, well, yeah, that's fine. We can flip to the pictures in a second. So we have a cyber range, and I know few people who know what a cyber range is, so I will explain that in 1 second. I know few people who actually have one. We have the cyber range. If you can move to the next slide for just 1 second, I'll show the picture. So you can see the pictures, the top 2 pictures on the left show the cyber range. What we have is a large space within one of our former textile mills. So Lowell is a city of 100,000 people. Like I said, 33 miles, half hour, depending on the time of the day, from Boston. It used to be part of the United States Industrial Revolution, and we used to have a lot of textile mills here, and they were all housed in these beautiful, beautifully built brown brick buildings. In the early 1950s, most of the textile industry went south because of costs, and those buildings were left kind of abandoned for a while, but we now have quite a number of them within our campus. And one of those buildings, called the Lancet building, until this day, even though my office was there for 7 years, I can barely remember how to write it, how to spell it, but it's a beautiful, beautiful building, red brick, a lot of wide wooden beams. And we got space there for the cyber range. And the cyber range's purpose is, so if you know what a range is, like a shooting range, if somebody needs to train to be a good shot with a gun, you go to a range and they put some targets and they give you some ammunition and you get to shoot. So the cyber range is the same idea with respect to cybersecurity. So we launched the cyber range probably about not a full year before the COVID pandemic started. So we haven't had the opportunity to actually put it to work the way we had planned, because obviously for close to 2 years, there was essentially nobody on campus. But the 3 purposes that the cyber range was launched for were teaching. We hold all our cybersecurity classes and various types of teaching activities related to cybersecurity at the range. Research, our cybersecurity faculty use the cyber range as a test bed for a lot of things that you wouldn't want to do on a normal network, lest you bring down the entire house. And for training for corporations, for organizations. Everybody nowadays needs some handling of cybersecurity situations. If you have a few computers in a network, you are sooner or later bound to bump into some cybersecurity problem. So the network inside the cybersecurity is a self-enclosed, sometimes we refer to it as a sandbox. Nobody can get in and out, but within that sandbox, our people can experiment with anything that you can think of without causing harm to anybody. At the same time, they and the students get experience in what it is like to encounter some attacks and to mitigate them and whatever it takes to learn how to handle those things. So just as we use the cyber range to teach our own students, we intend also to help these organizations, companies, whatever it is, to handle their cybersecurity situation. In addition to that, if we can go back one slide just for 1 second, as a matter of fact, there is a picture. The pictures at the bottom are of the NERV Center. It's New England Robotics Validation and Experimentation. It's a world-renowned center where various entities, including the United States military and many companies that are in the business of making robots, they bring their robots to NERV to test them. It's a pretty sizable piece of a building where they have all kinds of obstacles and various types of terrains and the various entities who bring the robots there just have them perform all kinds of tasks within the center, and that has become a significant entity within the world's robotics research and development. In addition to that, we have various labs that support other faculty members' research in various areas. This is myself. This is my contact information. Like people before me have said, you can always just go to www.cs.uml.edu and you can find all the pertinent information about our department. If you want to apply, you can go to www.uml.edu. I can actually type it right here. And if you're looking for specifically for graduate education, it would be www.uml.edu/grad. And since Professor Henry mentioned corporations that have hired their graduates, I will mention that we have among our alumni quite a few people within quite well-known companies, as well as within startups. And incidentally, one of the co-founders of Android, there were 3 of them. One of them was our student for bachelor's, master's, and PhD. His name is Rich Miner. As you know, Android was acquired by Google and became part of it. I think I have told you just a smidget of everything I can tell you about computer science at UMass Lowell, but that should be enough for this evening on your side. I'll be happy to take questions later when the time comes for that.
Thank you, Professor Ryan Letkovich, for the wonderful presentation. Now we will move to University of Rochester. Professor Michael Scott, over to you.
Thanks, Sudarshan. I'll try to be brief here because I know many of our attendees are interested in asking questions and would like the panel to talk about them. The University of Rochester, where I teach, is a small private research university, despite being named after the city in which it's located. We are a Research One university in the category of the most research intensive universities in the United States. We have about 12,000 students total, about half undergraduate and half graduate. If you're curious where we are, that's a map of the northeastern United States and the Great Lakes. If you're familiar with the Great Lakes, we are in the middle of the south shore of Lake Ontario, the easternmost of the Great Lakes. The closest big city, world-class city is Toronto, about 250 kilometers by road. It's a long drive, 590 kilometers to get to New York City. Next slide has an aerial view of the campus. It is truly a beautiful place to live. The campus is located on a bend in the Genesee River, which flows north into Lake Ontario. So downstream towards the upper left of the picture, you can see downtown Rochester. We're a city of about 1 million people, the third largest city in New York State after New York City and Buffalo. And right at the horizon, you can see Lake Ontario, and across the lake would be Toronto. Next slide. The computer science department itself was founded in 1974. We have a brand new building from about 3 years ago. That's a picture of it on the right there in the photo. We are a small department among research intensive departments with about 20 tenure track faculty and 4 full-time teaching faculty. We have about 150 undergraduate majors per year, or about 600 total. There are about 50 master's students total in the department at any given time, and about 70 PhD students. There's also a data science institute, which was spun off from our department about 15 years ago. We were one of the first universities in the United States to start a separate data science program. There's a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in data science, and I expect there will soon be a PhD. We are arguably one of the best, or even perhaps the best, small research department in the United States. And I want to say a little bit more about that because I know it's of particular concern to international students. If you'll go to the next slide, this is a scatter plot of the ranking on the y-axis according to one of the most popular rankings of American CS departments versus the number of tenure track faculty on the x-axis. And you'll notice up there at the top, the 4 top departments in the US, which are undoubtedly Stanford, MIT, CMU, and Berkeley, are all more than 60 tenure track faculty. And they're wonderful departments. And their reputation is based both on how wonderful they are and on how large they are. And if you look at statistics like citations per faculty member, publications in top conferences per faculty member, placement of graduates, research funding per faculty member. If you look at these scaled or non-size correlated statistics, you'll get very different rankings. Over there toward the left edge of the picture circled is a red dot. That's Rochester. On this ranking, there is no department in the United States ranked above us that is our size or smaller. We're pretty proud of that. So as you think about places to go for graduate school, all 4 of the departments that you've heard from today are small by US standards or by international standards as well. But if you look at metrics that aren't so strongly correlated with size, I think you'll discover that the small departments can be a really wonderful place to do either undergraduate or graduate education. And as Tahagata pointed out in his talk at the beginning of this panel, you may be a lot happier at the smaller school. So next slide. Here at Rochester, our department, because we're not huge, can't do absolutely everything. You know, if you want to do numerical analysis, you need to go somewhere else because we don't have anybody who does numerical analysis. But we have specialized. We are very well known in artificial intelligence and parallel systems. For example, we are one of the most AI-heavy departments in the US. In fact, in many of the rankings, if you look at the specialty of AI or computer vision, you will find Rochester is in the top 10 in the United States. Our other areas of specialization include human-computer interaction and theory of computation. And I've listed sub-areas under these that I don't need to read to you because you can see them here. I would also point out that we're a very interdisciplinary department. We have externally funded research grants in collaboration with a dozen other departments at the university, spanning not only the natural sciences and engineering, but the social sciences and humanities as well. And medicine. The U of R is one of the top medical research centers in the United States, and our department has ties with numerous departments over in the Medical Center for Joint Research. On to the next slide. We are very proud of our alumni at both the undergraduate and graduate level. Our undergraduate students go on to graduate work at all the best universities and are courted by all of the major high-tech companies and startups. Probably most of them move to the Bay Area after they finish here, but they work for Google and Facebook and Microsoft and Cisco and Amazon and you name it. I've listed on the slide a few of our particularly well-known alums. Ricardo Bianchini is in charge of energy efficiency at all of Microsoft's data centers. Corinna Cortez is the head of Google's New York City lab. Galen Hunt is in charge of edge computing at Microsoft and their huge new initiative in security for tiny Internet of Things devices. Henry Kautz is the director of the AI division of the U.S. National Science Foundation in the federal government. Rick Rashid founded Microsoft Research. Avi Tuvanian, who got his bachelor's and master's degrees at Rochester, was the chief architect of Mac OS X for Apple. And Bob Wisniewski is currently heading the project at Intel that is building the Aurora supercomputer at Argonne National Lab, which is expected next year to become the most powerful computer on the planet. If you go to our homepage, you can find a complete list of all of our PhD alumni, about 300 of them, and where they went. And we would challenge you to find any place that has a more distinguished placement record. Next slide. Let me tell you just a little bit about applying to Rochester. I understand that the audience today is a mix of prospective undergrads and prospective grad students. It's important to know that, as is the case at most U.S. institutions, undergraduate admissions are handled at the university level, not the department level. So our department doesn't do undergrad admissions, the university does, and then anyone who wants to major in computer science at the university can choose to do so. The deadlines for next year haven't been officially set yet, but I put on the slide approximately what they're likely to be. Rochester now makes test scores optional. You can take the SAT or the ACT or any of the other ones listed, but you don't have to. Generally, students who think they're going to do well choose to share the exam scores with us. Everyone is automatically considered for merit scholarships. Scholarships based on financial need are unfortunately not generally available to international students, but there are some very generous merit scholarships. So as one of the earlier speakers said, please don't pay attention to the ticket price, the official tuition price. Take a look at what the average student actually pays after the merit scholarships. Next slide. Graduate admissions are handled by the department. We do not impose a fee on applications for the PhD program. There's a $60 fee, which is fairly modest by US standards for the master's program. We do require test scores for admission to the graduate program, both the GRE and one of the two standard tests of English. Master's students typically receive a generous tuition discount, but they do pay tuition. PhDs, as is the case at most research departments in the US, are free. And a lot of people are surprised to hear that, but it's important to understand. Every PhD student in our department is guaranteed not only free tuition, but a generous living stipend throughout their PhD program, regardless of what research topic they're working on or what advisor they're working for. That guarantee is provided by the department. Every graduate student serves as a TA for 3 semesters, even if they're supported on a fellowship, and then they're a research assistant for the rest of their graduate career. Those 2 links will take you to information on how to apply to the CS program on the first line, and on the second line, how to apply to the data science program. And I think there may be one more slide, which has some additional links. That's the main homepage there for the CS department and the main homepage for the data science program, and links to some glossy advertising brochures about the graduate program and PhD and about the faculty in the department. And I'll stop there so that we can handle questions. You are muted, Siddharshan. You're still muted.
Thank you, Professor Scott, for the wonderful presentation. Thank you. I forgot to unmute my microphone, actually. We are currently working from home, everything virtually, but you can get free and paid services from our centers, from 8 centers in India. You have access to our library, resource library, where we have internet facility. We have test preparation materials, but currently the centers are closed, but you can get some online support if you take membership. And we have a list of resources, a list of services available free of cost as well as by membership attached in the chat box. You can download that and get more information. And we have a Education USA India app, which you can download on your smartphone and get the regular updates about upcoming programs, about scholarship, etc. We have social media like Education USA India, Facebook. We have Twitter, EdUSA India. We have YouTube channel where we have posted all the recorded session in the past. You can find in the Education USA YouTube channel. Like this will also be available on the Facebook. It is recorded. And we also have Instagram page, Education USA India. I will strongly encourage you to like our Facebook or log into our social media platform and get more information. Now with that, we will start our question and answer session. I hope you have typed your questions in the chat box. We will answer one by one the questions that you have written in the chat box. If you have not, please type quickly your question in the chat box. We'll be happy to answer your questions. There is a question from Parthafotin Pandey that please share scholarship details for international students. Actually, probably individually you can contact universities directly. They have provided the contact informations. Otherwise, any of you want to give any information about scholarship, please welcome from the panelists.
I think most of us covered that in our presentations. It varies some from school to school. It varies some depending on which degree you're chasing.
There is a question about California State University Chico. Someone has asked a question about employability ratio. I'm not sure what is employability ratio.
I assume it means what percentage of our graduates get jobs. And that's a difficult question to answer because you hear from the students who get jobs and you don't hear from the students who don't get jobs. We recently restarted our master's program, so our first group graduated last May. And in that group, we had 12 students graduate. And I've been told by several of the students in that cohort that all of them got jobs. I can't verify that, but that's what I've heard. For our undergraduates, it varies widely. A student who does poorly really struggles to get a job. Students who do well tend to get jobs. But sometimes students who do poorly get jobs and students who do well don't get jobs. And so I once again don't have a good answer for that. There's a lot of openings out there. The pandemic has kind of turned the whole industry a little bit wonky. But I think wherever you go, if you learn the skills necessary to succeed in industry, there are jobs out there for you. If you do well, if you go to a university at any level and you don't do well, you don't learn the material, it's going to be a real struggle to get a job.
There is a thank you note from one of the students to Professor Tyson. It says, for great tips, he wanted to convey you thanks for the great tips.
You're welcome. I hope it's helpful.
Yeah. There is a question in the Facebook about its IELTS course mandatory. When all of your universities accept IELTS score, there are 4 types of English proficiency tests are available, like IELTS, TOEFL, Duolingo, and PTE, Pearson Test of English.
I actually am not aware of the last one you mentioned, but we do accept the first 3 ones for sure.
Chico accepts TOEFL and IELTS, but not Duolingo.
Same
Auburn
for Rochester.
accepts, sorry. Auburn
about that
accepts
one?
TOEFL and IELTS both. And if they somehow miss that, but the application is very strong, then they invite the students in the campus, and within the first semester, they again take their English proficiency test. And if they pass, then that's great. I mean, they make sure that they pass because they have a separate class for their English speaking skill and listening skill and writing skills. So Auburn makes sure that a student would have enough knowledge of English. Yeah.
There is a question, are US citizens who graduate from India usually considered international students? So there are many American citizens currently living in India. They are studying in high schools or colleges. So will they be considered as international students?
So at
Yes,
Chico
it
State,
is.
they're considered domestic students if they're not residents of California, so they're typically considered non-residents of California. But the difference is they're evaluated by the international admissions team, which primarily evaluates international students. But if their degree comes from overseas, they're evaluated by the international admissions team. But they are domestic students, just not California residents.
If I can add to that, it's very similar here in Massachusetts. Unless you establish residency in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you're considered an out-of-state. So somebody from India who's a US citizen, somebody from California would be likewise considered out-of-state. But indeed, when it comes down to evaluating credentials for previous education, obviously we need to take into consideration where your previous studies took place, and in order to, mostly we have a service, for example, that takes gradings from foreign countries and create some kind of a mapping so that we have an idea how grades that you received in India compare to grades that we give here in the United States, so that we have some common criteria to compare your performance here and there. As a US citizen, you are of course not going to be limited by some of the constraints that a foreign student on a student visa has, for example, about work, about minimum number of credits that you have to maintain. An international student must be full-time all the time, at least 9 credits, except for when they're at the very last stages of their study, when they're on reduced course load because they're already wrapping up. A US citizen would not be subjected to those kinds of limitations.
Right. It's perhaps worth noting that the distinction between domestic and international students is largely a matter of law and reporting in the US. US citizens are eligible for certain scholarships that non-US citizens are not eligible for. And as Chaim was just saying, there's international students are subject to restrictions on employment and credit load that are imposed by the US government. For what it's worth, the undergraduate population at Rochester is about 20% international students. In computer science, it's 50%. And the graduate population in our department is about a third US and 2/3 international, drawn from all over the world.
There is a next question. So can electrical engineering students go for computer science?
Yes.
Yeah, we at Chico State, we're set up for that. We have some prerequisite requirements of operating systems, software engineering, database, discrete math. So if they haven't had these classes, they can take them once they're here. We admit students. You have to admit students so they can get a visa. So we admit students who have prerequisites and then require them to take the prerequisites once they're here.
Yeah, it would be similar by us. There are out of what we really require to accept somebody into the graduate program is partially something that any engineering and science person would need to have taken. That's the math part. And then there is algorithms, data structures, and operating systems, which are the three things that are specific to computer science. So like Professor Henry said, if you have a deficiency in no more than 3 of those, then we will admit you and have you take those as prerequisites. More than 3, it gets a little too tricky. It just will make the whole process very lengthy, and it's probably not the right thing to do.
I believe in Auburn, computer science and electrical department, there's a separate department for computer science as well as electronics. So it's a combined department. And always the schools, I think in all of the R1 schools or any schools, they always support interdisciplinary research and interdisciplinary study right now. So I don't think it will be a problem if you're from the electrical background and you want to pursue your degree in computer science. If you have a good background in computer science, of course.
Thank you, Tathagata. Our next question about, I think, summer program. Can high school students who are in class 10, 11, 12 can go for summer program? It's like pre-university program or something like that. Any of you offer summer program for high school kids?
We offer
no
summer programs, but I'm not aware of any that recruit internationally. For instance, we have a program that's specifically targeted at students coming from the Rochester City schools. There are multiple research experience for undergraduates programs at the U of R, both with individual groups and larger multi-investigator programs. But those are mostly for students who are already in the US as well. There was
I
a
believe
question.
Auburn provides some, I'm sorry, yeah.
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 After Tahagata gets done with his comment, we should loop back to the question about postdocs that I think we missed earlier. Oh, and it's just been posted. Yeah.
Yeah, there is a question. What are the opportunities for postdoctoral fellowship in the US, and what are some of the major factors that can help one in deciding whether to pursue a postdoctoral or not?
Yeah, Tahagata, did you want to address the previous question?
Oh, I wanted to say, Auburn provides some degree certificates during summer for the high school students. So that can be an option for anyone in 10th and 11th grade.
So I'm going to speak to the postdoc a little bit.
Yeah.
It depends a lot on what you want to do. For example, at Chico State, we try to hire faculty who are primarily teachers. So very few of our applicants have done postdocs, and typically the postdoc won't help them get a job at Chico State if your goal is to get a job at a teaching school. I think if your goal is to get a job at a research school as a professor, then a postdoc can be very helpful and get you that extra research to bring with you to your professor job. American industry is dying to hire PhD grads. So I think there are an awful lot of jobs in American industry for new PhD grads, and a postdoc is not necessary to get those jobs. So it really has to do with where you want to go. There's certainly postdoc money out there. I see ads for postdocs from time to time. So if you're on a research, like if you want to go to a research one school and be a professor, a postdoc is a good idea, and I don't think you'll have trouble finding one. If you want to go to a teaching school, I don't think a postdoc will help you. It's not necessary, although it could be fun. And if you want to go to industry, a postdoc probably, again, is not necessary, but it might help you get into some different jobs.
I will second all of that. Professor Henry's really nailed it. It has changed. So 20 years ago, almost no one did a postdoc after getting a PhD in computer science in the US. But that has evolved over the last approximately 20 years. And at this point, so we have 3 tenure track searches open at the moment, and about half of our applicant pool has done a postdoc and the other half has not. About half of the people we are bringing to campus to interview have done a postdoc, and about half have not. My colleague Shri Pai, who did his PhD at IIT in Bangalore, did a postdoc at the University of Texas at Austin before he joined us here. One of my most recent PhD students, Joe Izrailovich, who's now on faculty at the University of Colorado in Boulder, did a postdoc at the University of California in San Diego. But my student, Ryan Yates, who took a teaching position at an elite undergraduate school here in New York State, did not do a postdoc. So this is very much what Professor Henry was saying.
So if I can just jump to that, looking at some 16 over 16 people that I have hired as a chair in the last 6 years, I would say roughly half of them have gone through a postdoc and the other half didn't. If you happen to have a PhD from outside of the US and you want to go research, I would strongly encourage you to go a postdoc, so somebody will show you the ropes, as they say, of what it's like to get funding here and to write papers, which is definitely different than in other parts of the world. So, but if you already spent your PhD at a university here that's pretty strong in research, and you had a good advisor who kind of got you into this while you were still a student, you may not need it. I mean, if you've built a portfolio of enough papers and you've got to participate a little bit in getting funding, you understand how these things work, you can probably get a position as a tenure track faculty member without having to forego that part of income and delaying your career. And just like industry wants to hire PhDs, academia does too. We always there's a shortage and a growing shortage of those. So it depends on your goals, but also in your particular history and how confident you feel in your own ability to chart your own research path without having that extra guidance that a postdoc would give you.
So my advisor, when I asked him about the postdoc thing, he told me that postdoc is basically like a job. So in PhD, you are in F1 visa, but for postdoc, you'd have to have a H1B visa. There's a huge difference between PhD and a postdoc. And if you are from a US-based university, a research one university or any university which is super good, and you have published significant number of papers, then you can skip postdoc and you can apply for the jobs. But if you have less number of papers and you don't have any exposure to US-based university research curriculum, then I believe postdoc is a very good option. And for postdoc also, you have to get a H1B visa, which is not easy to get. So These are a few things you have to keep in mind about postdoc. So postdoc is mainly a job. It's not a curriculum, it's mainly a job. So that's what I would like to add.
I just want to add one thing to Dr. Sandeep Sharma, who has asked these questions. In India, we have the Fulbright Fellowship Program, and we have postdoctoral fellowship under the Fulbright Fellowship Program. And the announcement has been made recently. And please check the USIF website or check the contact information we have included in the chat box, and contact one of the centers nearest to your city, and you will get complete information about the Fulbright Fellowship programs, and you can apply for the postdoctoral fellowships in the US also. With that, we will end the session. Thank you very much, all of you, for presenting wonderful sessions today. And the students who have joined, thank you very much. And if you have further questions, you have the contact information of all the presenters. Please feel free to write email, contact universities, and get more information. Thank you very much. Thank you, my colleague Megha, as well as Unnati, who is working behind the screen, actually. Thank you very much.
Pleasure meeting you all.
Same here.
Wishing
Thank you.
best of luck to the students.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
It's a great career, computer science. So long. Take care.